entrepreneurship within Africa is considered as a major factors of development of the continent. This because entrepreneurship help in creating jobs, solve problems, and bring development back to our community. But according to statistics, the good percentage of startups close after 5 years. So when we discuss with entrepreneurs, many talks about the absence of finance, bad management, and inappropriate legal framework. So at the start of the game, I would just like to first welcome our panel for the discussion. We have Sir Alain Nounke, who is a portfolio manager of IFC, and we have Mr. Deji Fayose, who is the CFO of FCMB Bank Group PLC, and we have Madam Uchenna Ogwo, who is the founding and managing partner of Bridgeforte Attorney. I don't know if they're all there so that they can all join us on the panel so we can have the discussion, on the doing business in Africa. I was trying to present all the guests that we have for this important session, but please, if you mind to present yourself in your own way. I don't know with who I will start, but we usually say ladies first. So, Uchenna, if I may ask, who is Madam Uchenna Ogwo?
Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon from Nigeria. My name is Uchenna Ogwo. I'm a founding and managing partner of Bridgeforte Attorneys. Bridgeforte Attorneys is a full-service law firm. We provide legal services to individuals and businesses, and we do cross-border transactions as well. I am over 20 years at the bar, called to the Nigerian bar, and I've handled many legal transactions. Currently, I focus a little bit more on MSMEs, small and medium scale enterprises, because of the fact that they support like 90% of businesses worldwide, and it's important, that they are sustainable. So in more recent times, that has been my focus, providing them legal services to ensure, that they are sustainable. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now we're gonna give the floor or the mic to Mr. Deji Fayose. If I may ask, who is Mr. Deji? Who is Mr. Deji Fayose?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is hello from where Uche is as well. This is hello from Lagos, Nigeria. It's been a very, very rainy day. It's been raining cats and dogs there. Anyway, who is Mr. Deji Fayose? I'm a finance professional. I've taken finance for and banking, to be precise, for about 20 years plus now. I'm currently the group CFO for FCMB, which is one of the banks, indigenous banks in Nigeria. Prior to this, I've worked with Standard Chartered at Stanbic Bank. I also worked in London and Canary Wharf. But prior to this role, I was the head of the group head for the finance function, one of the first bank in Nigeria, looking after Ghana, Gambia, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Paris, China, Congo, UK. So for me, I have passion for the African dream. So that's who I am, a finance player trying to do his own bit within Africa. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sir Deji. And now we have Mr. Alain Munke. Sir, if you can tell us, who is Mr. Alain?
Yes, thank you very much, Carl. It's not raining here in Johannesburg. I think it's rather a relatively warm day, and so I'm based here working for the National Finance Corporation, and I look after the financing of this financial sector. I mean, as in activities are leading to supporting the financial sector in terms of providing financing. And when I heard Deji speaking from FCMB, it sounds familiar to me because this is one of the entities that we do finance. And I've been with the International Finance Corporation for nearly 10 years. But prior to that, I had 15 years plus in a number of international banks, the likes of Citibank and Standard Chartered, in a number of various locations. I mean, what really triggers my interest for this conversation is about Africa. It's about what we can do to support trade and investment across the continent in our respective capacities. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sir Alain. But when we discuss with the young people, many talk about the management. I am glad to have on the panel managers. So my question now is, please can you share with us your unique touch, or if I may ask, according to what's the specialty that you have, or what are the things that you consider when managing, and why, or what is the important things that you consider in your job as a manager, and why? I don't know, and I will say again, ladies first. So I will start first with Uchenna Ogwo.
Okay, it's an interesting question for a lawyer, because we have to do a lot of management. We manage cases, we manage clients, we manage staff. I would say, in management, it is not a skill that one is born with. I think it's a skill that one acquires, in the course of doing business, in the course of generally carrying out your day-to-day activities. Management is very key, because if you can't manage anything, then you don't have anything working or thriving. So I would say that in managing, you have to be empathic, with the people that you're managing. You have to be you have to pay close attention to what is going on around you, So for now, I think I'll stop there and then give the other panelists the opportunity to talk us, to be sure that I'm on track with respect to management.
Okay. Thank you so much. Uchenna talk about empathy, and now I will ask now, Sir Deji. According to you, what can you give again?
I think Uchenna has touched on one of the key things in management, because I made different management theories and different leadership styles. But what I'll say is that I think it's first of all having a understanding that no two people are the same, especially, from a management perspective, and no two situations are the same. So it's being able to see things from the lenses of those that you lead, whether on the same level, below you, above you, but being able to put yourself in their own shoes at all times. I'll call it being able to wear your hat on your sleeves. So I think for me, that's the key thing about management. Understanding that it's always about the people. So people first before the job. At the end of the day, it's just another job. If you drop there before your burial, people already applying for that job. So I think just treat people well. For me, that's the summary. Always treat people well and how you want to be treated. So that's it. It's one of the key themes of management. Thank you. And when I mean people, I mean everyone from the bottom of the food chain all the way to the top.
Okay, great. So, Sir Alain, to all what was shared, what can you add?
Yeah, look, first of all, just to build upon what Uchenna and Deji said, yes, there's definitely a lot of empathy. Empathizing with the teams that you are meant to lead, but also to complement what Uchenna said regarding the fact that we're not born managers, but it is more of a skill that you build over time. I tend to say it's a bit of both, because I personally believe that some of the threats that we have that could come from the way we were sort of brought up and how we grew, we tend to have certain inclinations which could make us more apt to manage or not. Okay, some people are very skilled technically, right? Good at what they're doing as an individual transactors, but not necessarily managing, be able to manage other people. So I think there's a little bit of inborn. This is why I would say there's a little bit of inborn there, as in some leaders have a bit of what we call natural leadership in them, okay, which of course through experience and through exposure, one can develop. But I would sort of say there's also clearly an inborn element. Now, what I would like to add to these dimensions is the fact that management is also how do you sort of get things done depending on the various contexts where you are in, okay. Getting things done is it's the outcome of management. We have to deliver on certain objectives, which are clearly said. We have to be able to get our team, the team that we manage, to work towards a common objectives and getting done. Okay, this is fundamental. Now, the second thing is the way we achieve that depends on the context. Okay, there are contexts where, as a manager, you need to be directive. There's some contexts where you need to be delegating. There are contexts where, you need to be consultative. So management is also how do you get the best approach to getting things done depending on the context. That is another thing I wanted to add to what the previous speaker said. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sir Alain. But we are still with you. Many people say Africa is a land of opportunities. Many people talk about invest in Africa. Many people encourage the young people to go into entrepreneurship. But the young people, when we discuss with the entrepreneurs, we have the feeling that the old people or the people from the previous generation are leading them maybe to a hole that they were not prepared. So my question now is Africa a land of opportunities, taking into account the whole environment of Africa, the political environment, economic environment, the legal framework? Do you think Africa is a land of opportunity? We are with Sir Alain.
Already. I thought you were following the same order. Sorry about that, Carl. And so, look, yes, by no means, Carl, I think, as I said in my own personal introduction, I'm a strong believer in Africa potentials, in Africa growth, for a number of reasons. Okay, one, because if you look at the statistics when it comes to, for instance, per capita, GDP, when it comes to, indicators like of how many people have a bank account, how many people have a loan from banks. So you realize that we are so low in those statistics that the potential to grow is great. Okay, we are fortunate to see that Africa is increasingly well connected to the world as well. Okay, unlike before, whether it is in trade terms, whether it is in new technology. So we can sort of take leap forwards to curb the gap with more advanced countries through technology. We can do that through the transfer of skills. We can do that with people like you that have, been in, advanced stage of various international schools and bring those skills to help grow Africa. We can do that through platforms like the AFTA, the African Free Trade, Agreement, which is there to foster the trade amongst African countries, which, as you probably know, is a very limited figure. It's clearly still in the early 10 to 15%. Whereas if you look at, Europe or Asia, how much they trade amongst themselves, their intracontinental trade compared to total trade represent typically more than 30%, some 60%. So clearly we have a massive opportunities to grow in Africa. The other thing I want to mention is that we have what we call, the demographic dividend. Okay, we have, a level of population growth, which is something that we just have to turn into actual skill mass to support the growth of Africa. Of course, Africa is always sometimes mentioned for lack of leadership, for issues like corruption, etc. But again, Africa doesn't have the monopoly of that, okay? And Africa, the new generation of leaders, the industry captains we see thriving in Africa show us the way that we can overturn all those issues. And we have examples of countries that are doing excellently well, okay? Not to name them here. We have examples of African companies that are thriving across the continent. So many examples that we could follow to make Africa, great and bigger.
Wow. Thank you so much, Alain. But I will now give the floor to Uchenna. But Uchenna, before you answer, what I will just ask you also is, do you have the impression that you are on the legal, you are in the legal sector? And my question to you is also, before answer, you answer the first question, but I'm adding another one. That is, do you have the impression that the legal business environment is sound in Africa? Like, do entrepreneurs in Africa not seen by ignorance? Because many people are complaining also about the legal environment, But do you believe, or do you think that on the other side that entrepreneurs are also committing so many errors, and that's why at the end they are blocked in their activities, maybe due to certain action that they did, maybe due to ignorance, and now when everything is already there, they're not running away and say, no, entrepreneurship is difficult, let me go away, Africa is not good, we cannot invest here, let me go to Europe and whatsoever. What is your take about that? And would you tell us more? You're in the legal environment and we have you here, tell us everything.
Okay, so whenever I hear about Africa, I really get very excited. I'm a very happy African. And the question whether Africa is a land of opportunity, honestly, I don't think anybody should ask this question anymore. Africa is the stage, right now for progress, for anything positive. Africa can feed the world. We have arable land, totally uncultivated. Yes, we don't have a lot of infrastructure. We may not have all the technology, but we have a young population who are very intelligent, very quick to pick on, trends. And so, if they have the opportunity, if the opportunity is thrown at their feet, they are able to create wonders. Africa is a land of opportunity, honestly. Africa is an amazing place. In 1991, we had the Abuja Treaty. The Abuja Treaty formed the African Economic Communities. It got to a time where we realized that, look, Africa needs to come together. We all need to come together, to form a community where we can foster trade amongst ourselves and support each other. Africa has everything. We have to import beef from Netherlands. No, we have it in Chad. We don't have to go look for grain from Russia, really. We can grow grain right here in Nigeria, and feed other parts of Africa. Africa is a very, very, very rich continent. And when you also consider climate change, currently, Africa is actually, because of all the arable land, contributing a lot to climate change, though we're not getting the benefits of it, which is really sad, and which makes me happy whenever people talk about the African Trade Agreement. It's a fantastic thing. It's a wonderful opportunity, for Africans to come together and create the Africa we want. You asked the question saying, young entrepreneurs get into business and then they get into trouble. But the question, who's making those rules? Who's really making the rules? We want to make our own rules. We want to make the rules that we want to follow. We want to create Africa that we are proud of. We want to make made in Africa goods for Africa. Whatever it is I make in Africa here, it's good enough as long as it's the source of origin is Africa. It's good enough for South Africa. We don't have to grow coffee in Nigeria, send it to the US, and then they give us chocolates. No, we can make chocolates in Nigeria, which is good for Africa. The chocolates I make in Nigeria should be good for Zimbabwe, should be good for Tanzania, and that is what the African Trade Agreement, African Trade Free Trade Area is all about. Africa for Africa. Mr. Alain, I hope I got your name correctly. At this point, I know you're from IFC, but I want to let you know that we now have Afrexim Bank, we now have AFC, and this is Africa's money for Africa. We don't need to go borrow money from the UK and the US. We have the money here. Mr. Deji is from FCM. We can use the money well right here in Africa. We don't need to be in debt. So Africa is a fantastic continent. Now, when we talk about entrepreneurs who get into business and then they say, oh, it's so difficult and all that. You see, I always say, big corporations do not take decisions without lawyers. And small and medium scale enterprises, which is actually made up of mostly the younger generation and women, unfortunately, they do not have access to legal support, which is one of the reasons why I decided to pay attention to this. There's no support for them. There are lots of grants being given to them, there's a lot of interventions, but there's no legal intervention for them. And so you find out that many of them actually start business, some of them as a side hustle, some of them, to augment maybe the work they already have. And they get into transactions that I always say, honestly, from day one, you shouldn't even get into those transactions. Why? They don't have their contracts in place. They don't have anything. They just move into business. Okay? And so when the problem comes, and then it comes back to people like us, we go like, and then they say, oh, we have money for legal work, oh, it's so expensive and all that. And that's why I'm advocating. I'm speaking of Mr. Alain from IFC. You people need to provide, intervention for legal support services for these businesses to thrive. Entrepreneurs are actually, holding the world. They're holding every society right now. The GDP for, from statistics, we hear that GDP that comes from SMEs are almost like 60%. That's really high. Employment, they employ also like 60% of the entire world. That is really high. They need all the support they can get. It's not only access to finance, they also need proper legal support. And I'll stop here so that Mr. Deji can have the floor.
So I would just say thank you so much, Uchenna, for lifting that point, because I'm discussing with so many African entrepreneurs. We are talking about finance, but people always say that they cannot go to a law firm. It's very expensive. That it's very expensive. That when we are talking of, they're saying that it's not easy. They prefer to take advice from a student who is doing law classes, or because they have the feeling that law firms they're very expensive. And I would just ask you this last question, Uchenna. You are the founding and managing director of a law firm. Do you have the feeling that the small businesses are your market? Because many entrepreneurs don't have that feeling. That majority of the law firm are looking for big companies to assist. Honestly, tell us now, do you assist the small business, and how do you assist them?
Okay. Yes, we do assist them. Small and medium scale enterprise. That's not just all we do, but particularly that's my desk, commerce and trade. Okay, we offer pro bono services for them. We have different. I would use the term packages because that's what we call it. Packages of fees, for them. So we have the startup scale of fees, growing business scale of fees, established business scale of fees, So we have all these things in place. Most SMEs, honestly, do not approach lawyers. So sometimes we have to go looking for them. Why? Because we want those businesses sustainable. The banks will give them money, but after 2 years, many of them are not able to survive. After 5 years, they actually do die off. Why? Because sometimes they are taking these decisions that they shouldn't take in the first instance. They have suppliers, they have distributors, they have, they have all sorts of, basically it's like a miniature of a big corporation. However, big corporations would not take any decision without the input of a lawyer. But these SMEs take all these decisions by themselves. Some of them even print out contracts, from online, and some of it is not even, it wouldn't work in your jurisdiction, So, these are some of the things that we encounter. provided legal services to countless SMEs, and I'm always willing to have them, speak with them. And again, in looking for a lawyer, they have to honestly look for a lawyer that has their best interest at heart, because some of the big law firms do not actually have the time, to pay attention to them. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uchenna. Thank you so much, Uchenna, for those information. And you were talking to Alain, but me, I have to go to Sir Deji Fayose. Please, Sir Deji, you answer that question. That is, do you think Africa is a land of opportunities? But I have to ask another question, because we are discussing with entrepreneurs, but everyone is talking about funding in business. But we have the feeling. I'm so happy to have you, sir, today, to have you here on the discussion, because the question that I want to ask is the bank really there to support the young entrepreneurs? Because we have the feeling that you have your own market already, and when a bank see a young entrepreneur, he's just looking for a way to suck it out, because they will ask for collateral securities, for many things that will not be very easy. Ask for land document. When a young entrepreneurs have his project started, he has all the record, but he don't have a land. So he's asking himself, how can he get the loan to take his business to another level? But now we have the feeling that the bank, they just want to give them their money to big people so that they can become richer. Now the poor people, how can they do to take their business to another level? Especially now that we are talking about the future of Africa, that we are saying the future of Africa will rely on the youth, on the young generation, and this is prepared now. So, Mr. Deji, we want to ask you, how does the bank support the young people? How do you support the small businesses?
Well, thank you, Carl. So, you see, when it comes to access for funding, there are different layers and there are different ways that young entrepreneurs can get money. So if we start with, before we come to commercial banks, even from a regulatory angle, from the CBN, there are a lot of intervention funds from the central banks, and it's not only Nigeria, but in different countries, whereby depending on what sector you're trying to, start your business in, there are funds that you can access. There are grants. If we move to something like fintech, let's even leave borrowing for now. I'm not sure if you're aware, but about $2.1 billion has come to Africa for tech startups. And these are all young people. They're the ones that have access to funds. So the doors are always open for small, medium, scale enterprises. And banking, as you would understand, is about relationships. So you see, the biggest risk is that it's not that the banks don't want to lend money out, but you see, the banks have also been burnt. So there have been instances whereby, and we're in Africa, so let's be frank with ourselves. People walk into the bank to borrow money with no intention to pay back from day one. That is how and they've come through the door. In some instances, they've also connived with people inside the institution. So inside the bank, with one of the staff, they're already in bed together, they're collaborating, just to make sure they get this credit, and then they're not going to pay back the money. So what I've seen over the years is that I think the doors are open. It's not about age or size or skin color. It's about what idea do you have? Do you understand? And does it meet the credit risk in place in the institution? Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to make sure that, this credit risk was not collateralized. Not every lending has to do with collateral. Banking relationship. If you started small and you had your RM that started with maybe an overdraft today, this is your business plan, and you guys are growing together, he's one that will come to the credit committee and say, hey, I have a customer called Carl. This is his business. And we'll pitch the case and we will lend the money. But the issue is that a lot of people don't want to, they don't want to crawl before they walk. You have an idea and you just want to come out and explode. It doesn't really work like that. You have to crawl. A lot of the big names that ever made in Africa, the big businesses, a lot of them actually, it took time to get there. Now, going on the back of that as well, I think another thing that I think entrepreneurs need to actually get right is a bit of financial literacy, because that's part of the problem as well. So people start up business, but don't even understand, the kind of cost they are running, the operating cost. So they just come in and say, oh, we're making X amount of revenue. But you're not even looking at the cost. You don't even know, what your profits are like. You don't even know when you're going to break even. They're just interested in saying, oh, I've started doing sales. This is how much I'm having in sales. I have X amount in sales. But you're paying salaries. You are generating power. Power has been a problem, at least in Nigeria, maybe not across Africa. There's diesel. This is one of the biggest things right now. Everybody's facing that. Food prices are up everywhere. Diesel costs they're about in Nigeria at about 800 naira. Food is up. Everything is up, whether in the UK, everywhere. So there are rising cost of living everywhere. So as an entrepreneur, I think that those are part of the things that as you draw your business plan, as you come for funding, you need to have all that in place. So banks will only be tight on you if I look at your business plan. You're an entrepreneur. You want to access funding. But from your business plan, I can tell that in 2 or 3 years, you're going to go bust. So what would I give myself comfort? Because don't forget that I'm also dealing with depositors' money and shareholders' funds. So how do I ensure that I'm not putting the bank on the run as well? Then I need to look for security. So if anything happens, if that risk to crystallize, then I can turn it to funds. So I think the banks are open to, there's so many grants, there's so many intervention funds. The banks are always there to lend. That is a business that we do. It's a business of lending, of giving out credit. But the issue is that, who do you give the credit to? And is that person credit worthy? So I think I'll just put it right there for now.
Wow. Exactly, so Deji, exactly. But you say that there's many support, that is the bank really want to assist the young people. But the way you're talking, I have the impression that there's so many information that the young people don't have concerning the bank. That is maybe the young people or the young entrepreneurs are just running away from the bank because of the fear. But in reality, the bank is really there to help. So Deji, is there any information that you wish to share with the young people, but that you have the impression that they don't have, or that they don't really understand? Or what do you really expect from young people coming to you, from someone who has a project, who get record of the sales that he did for 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 1 year, and he's doing profit, but he wants to take his business to another level. He needs the loan. What do you really need from them? What's your expectation from those young people?
I think for me, what I would say, when I look at all these things from experience all these years, I would say that is building and establishing, solid banking relationships. And it's not with the people at the top, so you have an account of a relationship manager, and it doesn't have to be one bank. It could be 1 or 2 or 3 banks. You understand? Have your business accounts there and just start to show, your floats, your revenues. Try to show that you are actually doing, because those are the guys that will bring your case. Because when it comes to borrowing money from the bank, it has to go through, credit committee. People will have to sit down and say, I want to borrow car money for A, B, C, D, E reasons. So, but who is going to speak this case? It has to be certain people. It's certain people that will actually speak this case. So I think for me is what's key is information. You need to sit down and say that what sector am I playing in? Now, what are the banks that support? Because certain banks support certain sectors. Like in my bank, we are more into MSME. We support the SME space big time. We're also into digital lending. And ours is an ecosystem, because FSM is a group. So it's wealth management, asset management, stock broking. It's the hyper market of financial services. So different banks have got a play after. Some banks are focused into a Greek. Some like to play in the real estate space. Some are just for corporate banking. Some are for commercial banking. So you need to first of all get what institution do you want to get in bed with. Then from there you start to build your company. So don't wait when you get big. You have to start small, because banking has always been historically about relationship, and will always be. It's all about you need to know this person, because perhaps there are some people come in that you don't even know who they are. He says that he's an entrepreneur. He said his company. I want to lend him for X amount in maybe a couple of thousands of millions, whatever it is in dollars, and then everything goes bust. It could be bad. It could be bad management. It could be bad leadership. And most of the time it falls to mismanagement. But at least the cases we've seen, more than 50% of the time is mismanagement. So it's always easier whereby you have people that have worked with you. So imagine that I've known Cal for a year and a half. I understand the kind of person he is, his company, his lifestyle. I'm not afraid that if I borrow Cal this money, Cal is going to go to Mauritius to buy a property or buy a Rolex. There's no concern of fear. I know Cal is going to actually expand this business. So those are real issues. Those are everyday issues. That is why you see that credit is getting, people in credit are looking into lifestyle today. So I would say that do your homework well for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, do your homework. Let's understand what sector do you operate. And let's drill down to what are the banks that lend in those sectors. And then you start that relationship from there. But in terms of funding, I think that Africa is at a place whereby everybody wants to, everybody's bringing the capital plays here. Everybody's expanding here. Like I said below, $2.1 billion have come in here for tech startups. That's a lot of money compared to last year. Almost over 80% increase year on year. So this is where the flow is going to start coming in again. So I think it's just able to position themselves and demonstrate that they also understand, their business. That's what I would say.
Wow, great.